It's a quiet morning, so let's run through the morning checks. The wind vane is probably the most important device on the boat, and we just want to make sure that everything's as it should be. Sorry about that ugly yellow spray grease down there, but every few days I grease the fittings. It keeps them from rattling. You know how these things work. The steering oar picks up the power of the water through a series of gears to move the steering wheel and keep us on course. This is the main cockpit navigation tool, a Garmin chart plotter, which tells us that at the moment we're going somewhere around 5 or 6 knots, that it's 875 miles to our destination. That's good news. Our heading, and the water temperature is 74. This is a Raymarine controller for the electric autopilot, which we don't use if the wind is blowing enough to steer the boat from the wind vane. I don't see at a glance any big changes from the darkness hours. Primarily we're looking for chafe at this point, and some classic chafe points are the reef lines. And I don't know if you can see, but on those reef lines there are some frayed portions, and the idea is to keep moving the bearing points around so that they don't chafe through. This is just a downhaul rigged temporarily in case we were to broach. That is, the boat made a sudden movement this way, the mainsail came aback. That keeps it from slamming over. I'm of two minds about them, because once you are pinned in a broach, that thing is sort of in the way. It's almost better had the boom jibed. Here's another chafe point here where the Genoa sheet goes to the Whisker pole. So what I do is to move the block forward and aft every day or two to sort of move the strain around. In the cockpit, I'm always hooked in this way. I promised. That's basically why. To go forward, we just switch to another set of tethers around the jack line, and by using the jack line in one hand and the lifeline in the other, you get a pretty good sense of security. The change in the positioning of the fuel jug seems to be working fine. These are reinforcement plates that we put on before the voyage because there was a crack in the aluminum casting gooseneck here, and they are working spectacularly well. We have one reef in at the moment, mostly to make the steering vane work at its best. A lot of pressure on the gooseneck. That all looks okay. These are lazy jacks, which means that the sail automatically furls when you reef it and unreef it. And here we can notice a foul. This is the reef line for the second reef, which isn't in use just now, which is behind the downhaul for the first reef. So I'll make a mental note of that, and when I go to reef again, I'll just untie this and lead it correctly. Don't have to do that just now, I don't think. A carbon fiber Whisker pole really is a marvel. Very light, great for a single-hander. But there's quite a lot of pressure on the line that keeps the telescoping tubes apart. And you can't see it when you do your deck checks. And it was that line that broke 1,000 miles offshore, causing the pole to collapse catastrophically. The exit port for the line and the big tube was made into raw carbon fiber. Forespar sent a truck to my house to pick it up. They're going to make good, and I'm sure they're redesigning the pole so it won't happen again. It all looks good up here. The anchor bangs around a little bit. I have it tied off. If it gets any worse, I'll have to deal with it, but it's not really an issue at the moment. After I got back, it took me 3 tries to find some way to keep the anchor from wobbling around in there. And the eventual solution was these pieces of, actually it's Trex decking. Marvelous stuff.
They just slip into the bow roller assembly, and their length, which is about a foot long, keeps the long anchor shank snug so it doesn't move around up there.
Oh, the graveyard of flying fish. Well, I'll swab the decks down in another hour or so. It's just a shame these pretty creatures have to meet their end by banging into the hull during the night. You know, they school up to escape predators, and they don't know there's a 38-foot sloop right there. Wham, bam. Thank you, ma'am. I don't see any chafe here. That I could tie that up, but it's normal and harmless to have the end of the sail stuck out. Nobody wants to have their mainsail up against the stays because it can cause chafe, like there where the full-length batten is. But there's really not much you can do about it. On a Marconi rigged vessel, in the olden days they put baggy wrinkle, they called it, around the stays, which worked fine, made of old ropes, but it looked sort of like the circus came to town. All right, quick deck check. I think we're okay this morning. We had a pleasant night of maybe 15 or 20 or 22 knots, and I got a couple of really good 2-hour naps. Now for some coffee.